Welcome back to the Mobile and Park series. This is actually part 7 of the video. Please check out the prior 6 videos and hopefully you found this valuable. So, in part 7, I want to talk about kind of the lessons that I learned and kind of the dark side of mobile and parks that no one's really willing to share. So, for some context, a lot of the podcast people, when they're talking about mobile and parks, they're talking about, mostly tenant owned homes, low value add in terms of like they're just raising the rents. Maybe they're building back the water. Maybe there's like 20 lots out of the 100 that need to be infilled of new homes that they're going to sell and then collect lot rent on. So most of those parks, those are what the podcast people are talking about, right? And kind of from my experience, and I'm relatively new to mobile park space, but like those type of deals typically go off market. Like people like me or beginners do not have access to those type of deals. So as a result, the reality is, as a beginner, you're going to be starting off with parks where it's more of a huge value add situation. Maybe it's a distressed park. You're probably going to buy it with seller financing, like I did, or through a hard money loan or like a bridge loan. And typically you can do a lot of renovations, a lot of heavy lift, and it's actually a lot more work, right? So the park that I own is a park owned home model. Um, in retrospect, I can see what the syndicators mean when they prefer tenant owned homes. It's a lot more scalable. I mean, the fact of owning 10 mobile home parks is already complex in itself, and you don't want to add the additional complexity of dealing with park owned homes as well. So a lot of them, work to, sell those park owned homes and convert them to tenant owned homes. And that makes sense, right? When you own like 10 parks, you want it as simple as possible because mobile home parks is already complex as is. So to simplify it, you need to remove any variables as much as possible. Like, keep it simple, stupid, right? KISS. That's my big model, and it makes sense in mobile home parks as well. So, so as a beginner, you only have access to parks in the southeast. If your price point's like $1 million around that point, realistically, you're in the southeast. Um, it's mostly park owned homes. There's a lot of vacancy. There's a lot of vacant park owned homes, some tear downs possibly, and then a lot of empty lots that you're going to have to infill. So it's a lot of like heavy lifting, right? So when you're kind of evaluating these homes, it becomes a little challenging, or these parks, it becomes challenging because most people, you go on those forums, I see it all the time. Oh, I want a park where it's a 10% cash on cash return day one. I want to be able to raise the rents, the lot rent or the house rent. I want to build back the water and maybe have it like 80, 70% occupied with the potential to add more homes infilling. I don't want to pay any money for those lots, right? So that's what people want. And there's no park like that. If there's a park like that, it's probably going to the big syndicators, right? For us small operators like myself, that's not realistic, right? So when you buy these parks, it becomes a little hard to value. Like obviously, you buy a 200 lot mobile home park for $1 million. There's 30 homes there to start. Half tenant owned, half park owned home, and maybe you're getting $6,000 a month. Just your loan is almost like $6,000 a month, and that's not including your fixed costs of your on-site property management, your off-site property management, your maintenance guy, your security, the lawn mowing, the water, utilities. Right, there's a lot of expense. So, how I kind of valued the park was on a per cost per lot basis. Right, so if it's $1 million, 200 lots, that's $5,000 per lot. I know in Alabama it cost around $20,000 to set up a new lot, right? So to connect the city water, the city sewer, the foundation, all that stuff, it's $20,000. So if I bought it for $5,000 a lot, I have a $15,000 spread, right? So that's how I analyzed it. And these lots are ready to go for the most part. Like, you just have to maybe, trim the grass around it and maybe clean out the utility hookups because they might have been clogged with like dirt or grass over time. But for the most part, like if there's already a vacant home on there that I tore down, the utilities are good to go. If it's a park owned home that I'm repairing, the utilities are good to go. So that's how I valued it, right? So I got mine at $5,000 per lot. Um, just to add a new home in, it's going to be, or a new lot, it's going to be roughly, $20,000 per lot. And, for the park, the value if you get new homes in, you're talking about maybe, $40,000 to $50,000 a lot if you bring in some homes, right? So, new homes costed around, I think, $40,000. Obviously, if you do like a rent to own model, that's most popular in the Southeast, or you can sell it if you find a good tenant or buyer. So basically, it'd be worth around maybe $40,000 to $50,000 a lot. So that was my spread. So that's how I kind of evaluate it, right? Because you can't really evaluate this based on the income, um, because you're doing these huge value add. So when you're doing it, your money isn't through the cash flow, right? You're going to be cash flow negative, I'll be honest, on it. And also, you're spending all this money to renovate, these homes that need to be fixed up. You're doing tear downs, all these fixed expenses. You're going to be cash flow negative. So where your money is made is, um, basically all the forced appreciation and equity that you build up, right? It's not going to be cash flow. You're going to get a lump sum at the end. And that's what I learned, right? I thought in a year I was going to, renovate, 25 homes in a year, rent those out and start making cash flow positive. But the reality is, I couldn't renovate 25 homes in a year. I was only able to renovate maybe like 20. And then as you rent one out, someone will leave. You rent one out, one person will leave, right? So you're kind of constantly chasing your tail. And then on top of that, you're gonna, what is it? You're gonna, things are gonna be more expensive, right? Like in terms of the renovations, be more expensive, materials are more expensive, things are going to break down. You have unexpected expenses, during, the storm season that just happened recently. You have to trim down trees, and all that. So a lot of your money is made through the value add. So what I quickly learned was, at first I wanted to fix this up, force appreciation, and do a cash out refinance, put my money tax free, and then continue renovating it, right? But what I quickly realized was, okay, at this point in the park, I just need to get to the point where I can show the value add plan to a larger operator and then sell it to them, right? I can sell it to them, or I can bring them in as a partner and I still retain some equity in the deal, right? So that's why I quickly pivoted. So that's why I said in my first video, it's very important to have multiple exit strategies, right? And to have multiple exit strategies, you have to buy right. So my initial plan was to, you know, renovate everything, bring in homes, and then do a cash out refinance, pull the money, and then continue the plan, right? But then I quickly realized that, I didn't have enough capital allocated towards the deal to bring it as far as I would like. But I put in enough capital where I prove my value add plan, right? The value add plan is proven. So I was able to renovate these homes and rent it out, right? Renovated the homes, I can rent it out for like $500, right? And then eventually I can convert some of these tenants to maybe rent to own, because there's a lot of demand for rent to own. The success rates are low, but there's at least some demand. And if they don't fulfill their obligation, at least you get extra $50 in rent, right? And then on top of that, you could, um, I had some people actually put applications in to buy the new homes that I brought in, right? They didn't qualify or they got cold feet at the last minute. But there's some buyers out there that do qualify. They just got cold feet. But with tax season coming up, people have more money. They might be willing to put down payment down. And then on top of that, I was able to bring in new homes for $45,000 all in, including setup costs, 100% financed, and I was able to rent those out for $700. So I think my loan is about $400. So I have about $300 spread, which you can kind of call, I guess, the lot rent. But the strategy is you basically rent those out, and then over like 5 to 10 years, the value of the home will go down, and at that point, you try to sell those homes to tenants, right? So an example is, let's just say I bought it for $45,000, in maybe 5 to 10 years, or 10 years, the value of the home might be worth, let's just call it 20,000 for simplicity. It's like half, or 30,000, and then you just sell that to a tenant and it's more affordable, right? So you have to think like 10 years out when doing like large value add parks. So because I don't have the capital to do that, but I basically prove the model. It would make sense for me to basically sell it with the model proven, the value add model proven, or bringing in a partner that has a lot of capital. And I just retain some equity in the deal, right? So that's what you have to buy it right. And what I bought it right at $5,000 per lot. Number two is my seller financing is great. So basically, they can assume my seller note, the note that I have, which is $1 million at 5% interest only, which is great interest rates. And then to help bridge them, I might have to carry money in the second lien position or retain equity in the deal, right? So you have to get a little bit creative when you're trying to sell your park. So that was kind of very great learning experience for me. And another kind of dark side of the mobile home park is just the fixed expense of managing 55 acres of land. I mean, when you have that many trees, I was spending like $6,000-7,000 a year just to trim down trees, on top of getting the power company to come out to trim the trees near the power poles. Mowing the lawn for 55 acres. When you own 55 acres and 200 lots, there's just a lot of fixed costs that go in, regardless if you have 30 lots occupied or 200 lots occupied. There's a lot of fixed expense that you have. Another mistake that I made, it was the crime was a little bit higher than I would like. I had to hire, in the beginning, I didn't have security and there was some, vandalism that happened. But once I hired security, it definitely lowered that vandalism. Like, they caught a lot of people proactively and it deterred people away that they knew that, hey, there's security here, so stay away. But now, yeah, the added cost of security, which I didn't anticipate to pay on a monthly basis. Um, and, with in terms of the renter tenant base, um, they didn't want to buy the homes for the most part. Majority, 80% wanted to be renters. I mean, they like the thought of buying the home, but how many can actually execute with it? It's a very slim few. So you have to get very comfortable with the park owned home model, especially in the Southeast, and then eventually organically convert them to rent to own once the value of the home goes down. Then you sell off the home, right? So you can do rent to own, or once the home value goes down to like maybe $20,000-30,000, then you can sell that home, and it's more affordable for people because maybe they're putting like 10% down, which is maybe $2,000-3,000, which is more affordable for them versus like maybe $4,000-5,000. Um, so I think on mobile home parks, the way I view it now, especially if you're doing a heavy value add park like mine, you have to have a 10-year outlook on the park, or you gotta be like full time team at the park, right? And for me, I'm still working full time W-2 as a pharmacy director. So obviously, I'm not on site, I'm not there all the time. So as a result, things move a bit slower. So, I mean, I'll talk a little bit of that in the next video, but hopefully, you found value from this video as to kind of the dark sides of mobile home park, and as well as how I underwrite, um, you know, value add mobile home parks. So hopefully I'll see you in the next part. Thank you so much.